One of our YouTube subscribers requested a little information on blending for crisp colors. So let's give that a try. Well, I broke this down into 4 steps for you. 4 points, let me say. 4 pointers. I believe if you will learn these 4 pointers or practice using these 4 pointers, you'll be able to blend for crisp colors and for true hues. So let me show you. I'll take them one at a time and show you what I'm talking about. The first one is mix the values of the colors in advance. Now the reason you do that is because colors change in hue as they move out of shadow and into light. Now you can actually study that by just taking a colored object, say a red ball or tomato, and put it under a light, and then study how the color changes as it moves from shadow through the transition into light. Well, in order to get the colors crisp and keep the hues accurate, then you need to observe that, and you need to be pre-mixed for that. Not necessarily need to, but to learn to do that, it helps to have the colors pre-mixed. Now, a lot of artists use pre-mixed colors or create pre-mixed colors in piles. I prefer a value line because because we have in a value line we have the actual gradation of the color, and it makes it easier. I think of my value lines, I think of them as having a shadow side, a transition, and then a not in shadow side, and that helps me to then use them to think about them according to what I am translating. Now, how do you mix a value line? Well, very simply. You look at the color, whatever color of the thing is that you're trying to mix. Now let's say if we have a green ball, I'm going to use the color green. If we were to have a green ball, and we're imagining this, and the light we're shining on the green ball, as the ball is in shadow, in the shadow part of that green, let's say it's kind of a yellow-green ball, and the shadow part, it's going to be cooler and a little more neutral. So in this case, I would start out with a color like Daniel Smith Sap Green. Pause for one moment. I'm talking about working with oil, or working with acrylic, or working with gouache. These techniques work best for that. Other mediums have their own unique techniques. So this is sort of limited to these 3 mediums. Now back to the thing here. So I know, so as I observe, I know that that sap green mixed with Hansa yellow light, and I have found this by experience, that sap green when mixed with Hansa yellow light comes up, raises the value to become a richer green. Now if I just added white to sap green, it would be a rather dull green, but it more closely resembles how that light would behave, or the shadow part of that light would behave on a green ball if I add the Hansa yellow light versus the white. So knowing or observing and learning the hues, how the hues change from shadow, deep shadow to moderate shadow to shallow shadow, through the transition into low light and on up to the center light. When we have that full range of values, then having that knowledge and making that observation is key, and then mixing a value line that more or less represents that. There's your step 1, and that is a real important clue to having your colors to be crisp. Or she asked for crisp colors and true hues. Well, that's both. That keeps the colors crisp and gives you the true hues. Now the second thing is the brush that you choose. Use a size of brush that is closest to the size of the shape you're painting. For example, I'm going to make just a detail, a little demonstration here. Let's say I'm just going to make it sort of something that would represent a ball here, a circle. All right, it would be a mistake if I came to this with this tiny little brush, because then I'm not going to get that. I'm not going to get those smooth transitions, and I'm not going to get the crisp color, because I'll have to stroke it too much and the color will sort of go dead. So neither would I come to it with a brush this size. I need to choose a brush that's closest to the size. Now this is a pretty good little size of brush here in order to paint a shape this size. If I'm painting a much larger shape, I need to go for a larger brush. So choose a brush size that's compatible with the shape. Some artists say choose the largest brush that you can find to get the job done. That's not a bad way to say it too. So there's the second very important thing, the size of brush you choose. The third important thing is to use the fewest strokes possible. Now here's how you can do that. I'll just do a very quick and almost rough demonstration. This is more or less for a smooth blend. Now I'm going to assume some stuff here, but say if I started out with a shadow part, I would put enough paint on the brush to indicate or to be able to show where the deepest part of that shadow is. Then I would wipe the brush. I'd go to the next value up on my value scale. The next value up would represent the next value up of the shadow. Alright, so then I would start with my brush here. I begin that next value up. Got a little dark. If I see it getting a little dark, okay, here I go. There it is right there. Pull it right there. Now I can gently pull my brush between those two and get that relatively smooth gradation. There's no need to brush. A lot of people will entirely brush too much, and when you do that, you lose the vibrance of the paint. And so we'll continue to go as if we're going from the darkest part of the shadow to the lightest part of the shadow. Now wash the brush, and then I'll go for the next value up. So if you always go for the next value up, and if you're doing this from observation, it really is much easier than the way I'm doing it now. If you always go for the next value up, you get the transition much cleaner. So I'll go for the next value up here. Now, if this happens, no bother. Just give a very light stroke with the brush, not very much, and you see you get that gradation. And let's go again. Next value up. Always the next value up, and wiping the brush off ahead of time as you do that. Now this one, I'm going to take the brush. I'm going to move it on this edge right here like that. Then we'll go right here like that, and let's go here. All right, now I'm going to stroke it, just 1, 2, just a little bit, and I'm going to go ahead and place those next values. Place the next value up, and usually when you place the next value up, if you just give it a very light stroke, then it will blend. If not, I'll show you what to do in just a moment. I'm going to go ahead and place those values, and then get the lightest value placed in the center here, and show you now how we can handle the actual blending as it goes uphill. Rather than take just a dry brush and go blending in between these, see where this one's kind of dumped. When I put this value in, it kind of dumped over to this darker shadow value. So this was kind of in the knot and shadow where the light's shining, and this comes in the shadow value. Well, rather than to blend those between, rather than to go and try to blend these two colors together, I'm going for the value that's in between them and put that on the brush, and then I don't need very much of it. And then watch what happens here. You see how smooth? Then we can get that gradation. Okay, get that gradation. Okay, I lost some paint there because this canvas is relatively smooth. So what I'll do is just go back and add it back in instead of brushing the dickens out of it. Add it back in. And then the same here. Now, just pulling very gentle, almost a caressing stroke between those two. Then we can see. Now we get, let's go back to the next value down. I want to get a little bit lighter in there. And I go back down the value scale right here. A little less paint on the brush. So rather than to keep brushing, you pick up the values as you're moving from one value to the other, you pick up the values that are in between two values that might be very, very contrasting. So with the fewest strokes possible. So no more strokes than you saw me make right there will be necessary. And notice how the color is true. Notice how here now, because I pre-mixed the colors and I didn't get them over blended. Notice how it's the color is very crisp here and how true the hues stay. And of course the fourth suggestion is to keep moving forward. Keep moving forward, and then what that means is that you don't keep going. You don't keep brush. Just more. Just keep moving forward, loading the brush with enough paint so that it allows you to keep moving forward. That shows a little demonstration for using a sphere. A spherical shape, but you can use that same principle in almost any blending technique where you're blending with oils or with acrylics or with gouache. So if you found this quick tip helpful, you might also find helpful our full-length instructional videos at DianeMinds.com. Give that a little look, and also let us hear from you. If you have a suggestion for a quick tip, drop us a comment right down here and make your request, and we'll put it on our schedule. And there's your quick tip.